Oh, it's time for a tier list. Yes, doing something different. Oop, I just shake the table. I did not mean to shake the desk. Um, I recently decided to sit down. Well, I have to stand up during work. I've recently decided to listen to Kanye's discography, his main stuff. I know he's done some side projects before, but the only side projects we're actually counting in this tier list is Kids See Ghost and Watch the Throne. They are like they're sort of they're side projects, but they're main projects at the same time. Um, and I'm gonna say something. Um, I enjoyed most of these albums. We'll get to the ones that I don't enjoy. We'll get to them. Which isn't a lot. I was kind of surprised on how much I actually kind of enjoyed a lot of these albums. So I kind of want to make it clear that anything from like the A to C category could like it could change at like any moment. I think these are like pretty close. These three. The only ones where I don't think are close is sort of like S and D. I'm somewhat super confident. I'm not super confident. I'm somewhat confident about the S's and the D's. Um, the A to C category, I'm not. I've only listened through all of the most of these albums. I've only listened from beginning to end once, and then it was recently. So take my opinion with a grain of salt is basically what I'm saying, because I'm gonna have some opinions that maybe people don't have the biggest don't have probably won't have the happiest to see is sort of a good way to see it. um but like if I put an album in C, don't don't think of it as I think it's a C tier album. I think it's C tier within Kanye's catalog sort of way. But let's get started with the debut, College Dropout. Now, it is Kanye's debut, and this is one of the albums I was like going over in my head. I sort of listened to a couple songs to the earlier albums to sort of get a little bit fresher of my taste in this album, and I think going through it, it convinced me. I think College Dropout is an S tier album. It is like there were a couple things about it where I was like, maybe I'll put it in the A tier instead. But after like going over it, it has skits in it, which I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan of skits in music albums. I think they um sort of mess the pacing up of an album, but I will give the skits credit. They do follow the theme. So one of like the big themes of College Dropout, which in the name College Dropout, you sort of get sort of a idea what sort of this concept Kanye made for his debut album. And the beats are amazing. There are some sort of laughable lines, but they're not like cringe laughable, but it's not like funny laughable. It's weird to describe, but there's some lines in there, but it's like it doesn't bother me. It's sort of like going through a few of these songs again. It didn't really bother me at all. It kind of like sort of fits Kanye in sort of a way. But I think it's an amazing album. I think it belongs in the S tier. Now, next is Late Graduation. It's the follow up. It it has a consistency like college graduation, college dropout, but I think This is staying in the B tier. Generally, people always like to put these two together. I personally, not the biggest late registration fan. It's a pretty good album. It's a pretty solid album, but I feel like the consistency of the songs aren't sort of the same consistency as College Dropout, but I think it's a really solid album. Gold Digger is like probably one of Kanye's best songs he's ever written. So like I got to give some credit to this album. I mean, it's in the B tier. I think it's pretty good, but I don't see it the same as College Dropout. And especially when I listened to it the first time and sort of going back through it a little bit, I still don't think it's the same as College Dropout. It's still a solid album though. Next is Graduation. Graduation. I'm just gonna put it in S tier. Graduation, I think it is an amazing album, and I was sort of looking at some of people's opinions on the album. I think it kind of gets slept on. Personally, I think it gets slept on in some ways. You get to see sort of this is a Kanye we're really never gonna see again. It's more of a positive Kanye, and it just so happens all of the beats on the album are pretty damn good. There's a couple songs lyrically maybe are not the best, but I think it doesn't hurt the album though. I think this album is amazing. I really like it. It's an S tier album in my eyes. Now, next is 88 in Heartbeats. Um, so I listened to the album before I sort of the story behind the album where Kanye's mom passed away and he just had all these feelings and he just had to let them out in some way. Even with that context though, I know I have a friend who's gonna hate me for doing this, but I'm putting it in the C tier. Paranoid is an amazing song. There was another song off of the album that I thought was amazing. Hold on. Me very unprofessional of me to not be prepared. It is Heartless. Heartless is also an amazing song in my opinion. Um the songs are by themselves. The songs are solid. The songs are at the very least okay. My issue with this album comes from sort of when you listen to these songs one after another all together, it feels it feels like it sort of drags. They sound a little bit too close together, which after so many songs, I can't really describe it, but like I can listen to these songs individually, really like it, but when it comes to listening to the album all together of 88 and Heartbeats, I have a rough time listening to it from getting in. I know it's sort of meant to be sort of rough to listen through beginning to end, but this is an album. It's hard for me to want to go back and listen through all of it. I do think it's an okay album. I do think, once again, I do think all of the songs. There's no bad songs on the album, besides maybe RoboCop. But besides that, it's an okay album in my opinion. It's just I'm not a fan of listening through it the beginning to the end. Is the way I'm trying to put it. But after that, we're about to get into controversial territory here. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Now, If there's anything about the Kanye community that I've learned about recently, it's that people love this album. And if you don't love this album, you are objectively wrong and you have no opinions about Kanye's music. So apparently, I'm going to have no opinion in Kanye's music because this album is going in the B tier. I'm going to say it. I think this album is a little overrated. There are some songs that drag a little bit. There are some stuff lyrically that drag a little bit. There, and what I mean by drag, this this album was made in a very specific time in Kanye's career. The same thing with 88 and Heartbeats, but with 88 and Heartbeats, you can sort of know the story behind it, but it doesn't feel outdated. There are some things lyrically on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy where I simply do not care about what the hell is going on with Kanye during this time. I didn't really know who Kanye was around this time. There's a lot of stuff involving like the VMAs, the South Park joke that they made. To somebody in 2021 and 2021 or whenever you watch this, there's certain things about it I simply just don't care lyrically, and in some ways it doesn't hurt the songs, in other ways it kind of does. With that being said, the opening track, Dark Fantasy, is an amazing song. Devil in a New Dress is an amazing song. There are really, really great tracks on here. But there are tracks that aren't so great. That aren't as, let me rephrase that aren't as great as people think. And that's why I'm putting it in the B tier. Let's just move on to probably another controversial opinion. We got Yeezus. This is Kanye's attempt at industrial hip hop, which I'm really happy this is the only time Kanye has done industrial hip hop. I do not think this is a bad album, but this is a album where I am not a fan of. There are snippets of really good ideas in this album, but as a whole, I don't think the execution comes off right. How the production of the execution doesn't come off right. I do like how Kanye tries to handle himself lyrically in this. Deep Disc Dive kind of put it in a good way, where the album is about Kanye telling his family, I'm an asshole. Can you accept me? And I do like that angle of the album. But production wise, I don't like the production on this album. I don't like it. That's yes. I'm just not. I'm not the biggest fan of the production. I can understand why somebody can like this album though. I don't think. I don't think that it's a. I don't think that it's an objectively bad album. It's not an album for me, and that's why I'm putting it in the D tier. Um, we're gonna do the collabs last. So that means Life of Pablo is next. I thought I was gonna have more stuff like in the a Life of Pablo. Where do I put Life of Pablo? I think I'm gonna put Life of Pablo in the A tier. I can feel the people's hate of me saying Life of Pablo's better than My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Give me the hate. Give it to me. Give it to me. But I do think this is a better album. I think it kind of deals with a lot of stuff that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy tackled, but I think Life of Pablo just I think it did it better. The last like 5 tracks of the album are like great, but it still sort of suffers. It has it has some lyrics I will consider cringe. Now, this is like the I know this is like the current Life of Pablo was different than Life of Pablo when it came out production wise. But I still think there's a couple songs on here where it's not the best in the production department. As a whole, I still think the album is really, really good, regardless of its issues. Next is Yee. Um, where do I put Yee? Where do I put Yee? Yee goes in the A tier. It it might go in the S tier though. This is one where I think I'm conflicted between A and S. For now, I'm gonna put it in the A tier. It is a super solid album. Uh, the issue with it is it's too short by a fault. The album, it just wants you to have more. You want more of it. You just you don't want like you get 23 minutes of amazingness, but it's only 23 minutes. You're like, if there's only a few more tracks of this quality. Oh, oh, oh. And the features. It's got really great. The song Ghost Town is just, it's so good. You know what? I changed my mind. Yee goes in the S tier. Yes, it's short to a fault, but there's no bad song on it. Every song is a banger. Next is Jesus is King. It goes in the D. Yes, we're going straight to S to D. Um, it's a Christian album. It's most certainly a Christian album. And I think that's where a lot of its issues come in. Now, I don't think it's a bad. Once again, I don't think it's not a good album, but it's not a bad album. You can find something about this album. You can find good things in this album, which I'm happy this tier list did not have an F in it because I don't think it's an F tier album. I definitely do think it's a D. It's in the D tier. I would not put a single album in the F tier for Kanye. Um, it's got things that you can find that you like about it, but if I have to hear Kanye say Jesus's name again one more time, I might lose it a little bit. It's longer than Yee, but there's some Kanye saying Jesus 500 times is kind of annoying. But it's not the worst thing in the world. There are much worse albums. It's not good, but you can find at least something out of it. Next, we'll do Donda last. Let's do Watch the Thrones. Watch the Thrones is an album with Kanye and Jay-Z. It's a good album. It's okay, but it's just okay. No, I'll put it in the B tier. Because I was thinking of a couple songs on the album. There's a few songs on it that I think holds it to be above C tier. It's like borderline CB. The issue with it is that you don't need to listen to it. If there's any filler albums on here, It's Jesus is King and Watch the Thrones. It's not a bad album. It's pretty good. I'm putting it in the B tier. It means it's pretty good. But you could also skip it, I guess is another way to say it. That's why I'm like borderline B, C on it. It's like these are like high B's, this is like a low B. Think about it like that. Um Kids See Ghost. This is the 2020 album. Yeah, this can no 2020 2019 album. Um, I think it's really good. I think it's not S. I think it's an A tier album. It's pretty good. Once again, it's issue that it's short. It's too short to a fault. It wants you to have more, but I think Yi just had the quality of the songs. I just kind of prefer to the quality of the Kids See Ghost. But there's no bad track on here. But its length kind of does hurt it. The album feels very, it doesn't feel very abrupt, but it's not there. To me, it's not there to S tier, is a good way to put it. And then finally, we got Donda, the album that came out in the year 2021, which is the year that I'm recording this. This ain't the full black cover art. I don't know why it's the donkey cover art, but I'm putting this album in the C tier. The first like 5 to 6 songs on the album are like A tier, and then it nosedives as soon as you get the Jonah. Once you get the Jonah, the quality it's like woo bam. It's like bruh, and the album is so long. It's and there's a deluxe version. There's a deluxe version of this album, and it's even longer. Remote Control is a shit song too. It's a shit song, but I I still think I still think it's an okay album. I still think it's an okay album. Um, the there's there's more positives than negatives on this album. There is enjoyment to it, but it's so long, and if you would have cut out like half of the songs on this thing, it would be like an A tier album. But there's just there's just a lot of just songs that didn't need to be on the album. But it's still okay. It's an acceptable Kanye album, which I'm fine with taking an acceptable Kanye album. Um, Actually, I can't put Donda in C tier. I'm sorry. I gotta put Donda in the Glue Glue Glab Glab tier. That's where it deserves. It deserves Glue Glue Glab Glab tier. That's it. That's my tier list. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Give me your hate. Give it to me. Give it to me. See you for the next video, tier list, or whatever I do next.